Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am Just a Fun Guy, and earlier this month I did a video on the 45 plus facts about the 45 United States presidents. Well, that got me thinking. The presidents are famous, but there's also famous vice presidents of the United States, but they're often overshadowed by their bosses because the president's the most powerful man in the world, and the vice president's, the second most powerful man. So today I'm going to give the vice presidents they're going to be the star of the show today. I'm going to tell you 48 plus facts about the 48 vice presidents. Here we go! Vice president number 1 just so happens to be regular president number 2, John Adams. He served under George Washington. He was born in Massachusetts, and he lived to be 90 years old. Living to 90 today is impressive, but living to 90 back in the 17 and 1800s, that's even more impressive. Thomas Jefferson. He was the second vice president, become third president. He served under John Adams. He was born in Virginia. And an interesting fact, he was a wine aficionado. Vice President number 3, Aaron Burr. He served under Thomas Jefferson. He was born in New Jersey. Interesting fact, him and Alexander Hamilton were involved in a duel where he was the successor. Hamilton was killed instantly. The next vice president is George Clinton. He served under James Madison. He was born in New York. And the interesting fact is, I don't have any interesting facts because I looked for a couple of minutes. And all the interesting facts are about this George Clinton. The next vice president, Elbridge Berry. He was served under James Madison's second term. He was born in Massachusetts. And interesting fact, he was one of 3 people that voted against the Constitution. Vice President number 6, Daniel D. Tompkins. He served under James Monroe. He was born in New York, and in New York City, Staten Island has a neighborhood named after him called Tompkinsville. Vice President number 7, John C. Calhoun. He served under John Quincy Adams. He was born in South Carolina, and interesting fact, he helped establish the second bank of the United States. Vice President number 8 was Martin Van Buren. Now, he was president himself after Andrew Jackson, but he served under Andrew Jackson before he was president. He was born in New York. And the saying "okay" or a term, or I don't know what you want to call it, was okay was it was kind of named after Martin Van Buren because his nickname was Old Kinderhook because he was born in Kinderhook, New York. In fact, if you go to Kinderhook, New York, you can find a bronze statue of him. Vice President number 9, Richard Mentor Johnson. He served under Martin Van Buren. He was born in Kentucky. And before he was a vice president, he was a congressman and a senator. VP number 10, John Tyler. Tyler served under William Henry Harrison. He was born in Virginia. An interesting fact, he annexed Texas. The next vice president, George M. Dallas. He served under James Polk. He was born in Pennsylvania. An interesting fact, he had a political rivalry with James Buchanan. Some things never change. The next vice president on the list, Millard Filmore. He served under Zachary Taylor. He was born in New York, and he was said to be one of the last members of the Whig Party. Willian R King. He was the 13th vice president. He served under Franklin Pierce. He was born in North Carolina, and before his VP days, he was a senator. Next up, John C. Breckinridge. He served under James Buchanan. He was born in Kentucky. Interesting fact, he did not support the expansion of slavery, but he was a slave owner himself. The VP number 15, Hannibal Hamlin. He was Abraham Lincoln's first vice president. He was born in Maine, and he already had an amazing political career that spanned over 50 years, and originally he did not want the job of vice president. But due to some colleagues supporting him and friends supporting him in political drama, he decided to take it, and history was made. Vice President number 16 was Andrew Johnson. He served under Lincoln's second term, and when Lincoln was assassinated, obviously he took over. But he was born in North Carolina, and he is one of 3 presidents to be impeached. Johnson, I don't think he was fully impeached. I think he was saved by like 1 or 2 votes. Nixon resigned, and Clinton was saved by a couple of votes. So, yeah, that was a close call for him. Vice President number 17, Schuyler Colfax. He served under President Ulysses S. Grant. He was born in New York City, and interesting fact, his grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War and was close friends with George Washington. Vice President number 18, Henry Wilson. He was Grant's second vice president, so he served under Grant's second term. He was born in New Hampshire, and interesting fact is he grew up on a farm. The next vice president was William A. Wheeler. He served under President Rutherford B. Hayes. He was born in New York, and interesting fact is before he was vice president, he was a very successful lawyer and held some high up positions in New York state government. Vice President number 20 and President number 21, Chester Arthur. He served under James Garfield, and he took over because Garfield was assassinated. He was from Vermont, and interesting fact is, he did not make an inaugural address. He was inaugurated, and that was it. Thomas A. Hentricks. He was the vice president to Grover Cleveland. He was born in Ohio, and a sad fact is that he died only 9 months in. The next vice president was Levi P. Morton. Morton served under President Benjamin Harrison, and he was born in Vermont. Before he became vice president, he was a successful business tycoon. Back in his day, he was a major player in the transport of cotton, and by 1873, he was one of the world's richest bankers. Number 22 was Adlai Stevenson I. He served under Grover Cleveland. He was born in Kentucky, and he was the first assistant postmaster. Garret Hobart. He was the very first vice president to William McKinley. He was born in New Jersey, and he worked his way up. He started off as a bank clerk, working his way up to bank manager. He took the bar exam and became an attorney, and he was a master attorney. Then he worked his way up to vice president, so good for him. Theodore Roosevelt. He was McKinley's second vice president, and he actually took over when McKinley sadly was assassinated. He was born in New York City, and an interesting fact about him is he did not like the nickname Teddy. He preferred TR or Colonel. Charles W. Fairbanks. He was the vice president under Theodore Roosevelt. He was born in Ohio, and he was in the United States Senate He served as senator from 1897 to 1902. James Sherman. He was the vice president for William Howard Taft. He was born in New York, and when he was in college, he joined a lot of clubs. Thomas R. Marshall. He served as vice president under Woodrow Wilson. He was born in Indiana, and he successfully advocated the passage of child labor laws and anti-corruption policies. Calvin Coolidge. He was the vice president for Warren Harding, and he eventually took over because Harding had a heart attack. He was born in Vermont, and he had the nickname Red. That was because that was the color of his hair. VP number 30, Charles G. Dawes. He was the vice president for Calvin Coolidge, born in Ohio, and he was a co-recipient for the Nobel Peace Prize. Charles Curtis. He served as vice president under Herbert Hoover. He was born in Kansas, and he was the first vice president with Native American heritage. He spent most of his time on an Indian reservation, the Kaw Indian Reservation, with his grandparents. John Nance Garner was FDR's first vice president. He was born in Texas, and you may hear him referred to as Cactus Jack. That's because that was his nickname. Henry A. Wallace. Wallace was Roosevelt's vice president during his third term. He was born in Iowa, and before he became Roosevelt's VP, he was his Secretary of Agriculture. Harry Truman. Truman was the fourth and final vice president for FDR, eventually taking over when FDR passed. He was born in Missouri, and an interesting fact about him is the S in Harry S. Truman does not stand for anything. It was just there. Alben W. Barkley. He became vice president when Harry Truman took over. He was born in Kentucky, and his daughter married Douglas MacArthur II, the son of war hero Douglas MacArthur. Vice President number 36, Richard Nixon. Nixon served under Dwight Eisenhower. He was born in California, and him and FDR were the only two presidents to be on the presidential ticket 5 times. Lyndon Johnson. Johnson served under John Kennedy, and sadly, Kennedy only lasted 1 or 2 years because he was assassinated, and then LBJ took over. He was born in Texas, and when he was president, he appointed the first African American to Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. Hubert Humphrey. When LBJ took over, he was LBJ's vice president. He was born in South Dakota, and throughout his political career, he fought for 2 things. Well, the 2 biggest things he fought for were civil rights and nuclear disarmament. Spiro Agnew. Here he is with his boss, Richard Nixon. He was born in Maryland, and his father was a Greek immigrant, and he also fought in World War II. The 40th Vice President, Gerald Ford. He was Nixon's second Vice President, and of course he eventually took over when Nixon resigned because of Watergate. He was born in Nebraska, and he was also an Eagle Scout. Vice President 41, Nelson Rockefeller. Rockefeller was vice president under Gerald Ford. He was born in Maine, and he actually ran for president 3 times in 1960, 64, and 68 before he was appointed vice president by Ford. He may have failed at running for president, so I guess he got the second best option. Walter Mondale. He was vice president under Jimmy Carter. He was born in Minnesota, and as of this recording, right now, he is 91 years old, and that currently makes him the oldest living former vice president. George H.W. Bush. He was vice president under Reagan before becoming president himself. He was born in Massachusetts, and during World War II, he survived 3 plane crashes. Dan Quayle. He was vice president when H.W. took over. He was born in Indiana, and his father, James Quayle, was the head of a newspaper publisher. Al Gore. Gore was the vice president under Bill Clinton. He was born in our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and he went to Harvard College. Dick Cheney. Cheney was the vice president under George W. Bush. He was born in Nebraska, and he has not been in the best of health. Cheney has had 5 heart attacks and underwent a heart transplant in 2012. Joe Biden. Biden served under Obama. He was born in Pennsylvania, and Biden does not drink alcohol because he personally knows what alcoholism does to a person because someone in his family had it. Mike Pence, our current vice president. He's serving under our current president, Donald Trump. He was born in Indiana, and a cool fun fact about Mike Pence is his favorite ice cream flavor is Moose Tracks. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching my videos. I really enjoy making them as much as you do watching them, so stick around for more content. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and like it and subscribe and share and do all that good stuff. Well, once again, my name is Just a Fun Guy, and I'm signing off. So long, YouTube.